been working not directly with many organizations, but as a consultant for many organizations, being the oil companies, being the car companies, being the electricity companies, the multilateral organization, the IO. Yes, I've had a chance to work with many different types of organizations, including also the finance sector, and quite worldwide. So that's very, very interesting in this respect. Gives perspective on the global issues as well, and on the fact that energy issues are both global and local. Think globally, act locally. The Energy Center of EPFL is a transversal unit within the EPFL that sort of federates or coordinates the energy-related activities that are spread amongst some 40 labs in EPFL. But nowadays the energy system becomes more and more integrated, so it's more and more important to have various expertise to be able to talk together in order to set up joint research projects or programs. One thing, our role is also to look at the outside world and look at the market out there. What is needed? Where is the market still needs to develop in terms of novel energy technologies or clean technologies, and where can expertise within EPFL be found that can actually respond to these market needs. Pretty much my role is really to develop all these activities, whether these are the activities inside out, helping the labs coordinate the effort towards setting up joint project, or bringing key account clients or industry actors to EPFL to see if they can find answers to the questions. Yes. And having a foot or a couple of feet in the real development of technologies gives you good insights in the market needs, and B, the difficulty of technology transfer, and to make from the lab to the real world to meet the market is a very long journey, and understanding the complexity of these steps with real case gives you a bit of realism. The financial institution will be needed to accompany the energy transition. The energy transition is about deploying novel technologies, and this will not happen if there is a barrier of capital. So someone needs to invest in these novel technologies for these to be deployed. So the finance people or model will be needed, irrespective of the business model. You need someone to be convinced it works. You need to have sufficiently good return on investment, so that someone is along the value chain, ready to invest in the technology development, in the technology, in accompanying the technology to the market, and in then deploying the technology. In many respects, the business is a paradigm shift in the business model, in the way you really address the way energy is being marketed, switching mainly from kilowatt hours sold to energy services sold, and this shift in a paradigm of commercializing energy and energy technologies is absolutely critical. We will need to find novel business models that are attractive to the investors. And at the moment, in many respects, we have. If your system is made of centralized plants, that is relatively easy to finance, because you have a plant with a business model, predicted cash flow, a return on investment that you can sort of pretty well calculate. Is few actors involved, so you can finance it quite easily if the financial conditions are right. Now, if you talk about a fully decentralized system made of a lot of generation points everywhere, millions of them, and also made of energy efficiency, which will mainly be made of decentralized technologies as well, then the financing is much more difficult. You can't have it is likely to be multi-actor. Suddenly, these actors, these sectors that were historically completely decoupled from each other, suddenly are going to be intertrained. And it means these actors will need to talk to each other and find common business models. And that's one of the big challenges. On top of that, if you talk distributed generation, for instance, or microgrids, you need the citizen or the households to be part of the project. Mm-hmm. And how are you going to make sure that the energy transition happens and that you have the buy-in of all the citizens? Not only in terms of technology acceptance, it goes beyond that. They need to have a real proactive willingness to participate in investing, by investing in being part of projects that will see the deployment of these technologies. You have many models, and again many underlying questions. But first of all, if the government needs to subsidize, it means that technologies are not commercially viable, are not competitive, right? In the long term, a subsidy approach is not viable. So normally you set up subsidy schemes to initiate the market until the cost curve and the cost of these technologies will become naturally competitive. So it should be limited, ideally, to initiating the market and making sure that it sets up rightly. And then it should give way to, and the market should take over. That's a fair thing. You cannot subsidize for forever, for decades. So you should find mechanism to finance the energy transition that are as far away as possible from distorting the market. One ideal way is by taxing CO2, which is what we're trying to do in Switzerland. We significantly, we're 10 to 12 times higher in our carbon CO2 tax than the rest of Europe. One way, but this is difficult to set up such a scheme at local level and national level. It needs to be coordinated at minimum at continental level, if not more. And the second question that you need to ask yourself is tomorrow's system going to be more expensive than today's system? And from our computation here at EPFL, we tend to show that no, the current system costs much more than we think. So saying that the energy transition will cost 5 billion, if you take the Swiss case, estimated 5 billion investment per year, well, you should compare that at what we currently pay for our current system. So you also need to account for not only for the cost of what comes next, but also what is the current cost? How much am I today paying in terms of investment and in terms of balance of payment? Because we're still importing for billions of francs of fossil product. The decentralization is the key word. Distributed generation and integration. Increase integration of the electric system in the wider energy system. So heat, electricity, and transport will become intertrained sectors. Mm-hmm. Many options. Decarbonizing the transport sector is challenging. Mostly because the technologies that will enable this decarbonization to happen do not really exist yet. So the one option is obviously to keep improving with incremental development on the existing motorization, diesel, gasoline, classical thermal car. Hybridization will play a key role here. This is a dead end in the sense that it will always emit to go, and the marginal cost of reduction of the CO2 emissions, so improving the fuel efficiency, is going to increase. But this is still one avenue that will be pursued and which will generate the biggest savings in the coming decades, than 1 and 2 decades. And now you have the alternative motorization, essentially the electric vehicles. So we talk here about pure electric and the plug-in or the extended range. That's indeed brings a complete paradigm shift. You know the challenges, you know them. It's mainly autonomy of the batteries, which is a wrong issue because 99% of the trip that we do can easily be done with an electric vehicle. And the last option, the obvious option, is the hydrogen vehicle, fuel cell car. This is an option that is really complementary to the electric vehicle, so that's very interesting, particularly for longer journeys and bigger vehicles, heavy weight in particular. Mass market is not to be expected before 2025 or something like that, if we manage to develop the fueling infrastructure, which is going to be extremely costly and extremely complex to deploy. We're not going to reduce our consumption of fossil product in the coming decades. We're going to rely more and more on unconventional fuels, just because the growing economies are going to increase the consumption drastically, and this will not be offset by the decrease in the mature. What they should do is definitely meet a joint agreement on typically carbon emissions end of this year in Paris. Now, nobody believes in that, we're uncertain, but their role is definitely to set up the framework conditions, to set up the policies. But again, if you can't take the risk to damage your own economies if the others are not doing the effort. It should be a joint effort. And the difference between the emerging economies that say, come on, we have first to reach maturity before you can ask us to do any effort, given you have been polluting for 100 years, is a fair argument. And this conflict between or this challenging issue is likely to remain a huge bottleneck in meeting any agreement at global level. That the switch could happen without having to reach an agreement on carbon emissions, simply because the renewable options and energy efficiency technologies might become naturally cheaper than fossil options. So I believe much more in the market dragging these novel technologies and making them mass market rather than reaching an agreement in Paris end of this year. I mean, the overarching pressing one is clearly this one, is how to transfer from an energy system today that is not sustainable to an energy system that might be one day sustainable, and how to initiate the energy transition and how to make it happen fast enough is certainly one of the most pressing issues. Another pressing issue that is underlying is the fact that renewable energy is not necessarily sustainable. Wind is renewable, windmill is not, right? So we are going to hit also limits of the system by the fact that the renewable technology will rely on non-renewable materials, which are also going to be at the limit at some stage. One of the resources that is going to be a bottleneck is water. And water energy nexus is a time bomb that will very soon make some noise.